Welcome to the madness. We're going to talk some self-published books while I rest among a throne of boxes. Welcome back, everybody, and welcome to my abode. As you can tell, I'm still moving in. Still got a lot of books to take out of my boxes, so I just threw this together and decided to film because I need to film. And guess what today we're talking about? We're talking about Winds of Strife by Uri Gutman. Uri's a good friend of mine. I met him here on BookTube. Met him here in Discord. And I've known about his book since I met him, and I've been waiting to read it. So for the Shelf Published In, we decided to read it. And this is my review of it. So here you go. I will be talking spoiler and non-spoiler reviews. And above all, I'm trying to be, of course, honest about what I'm talking about. I do know that self-published books are very hit or miss sometimes. So I'm going to try to give kind of a better style review than I have before. Check in the tags for when the spoiler versus non-spoiler starts. Non-spoilers coming first. Let's get into it. So to start out with the non-spoiler pros, cons, negatives, and positives, hopefully more positives. Did I like this book? Let's start with that. Yes, I did. Uri definitely, put a lot of effort into this world and worked to bring it to life. And that is all made more amazing by the fact that, English is not his first language. So for it to be as good as it was, I do have to give him props for writing in a second language. So that was awesome. So what is this book about? Winds of Strife follows, it is a multi-POV book. Most of it follows our protagonist, Nye, but it does switch over to other characters that are arguably sub-protagonists at times that give you a better scope of the world. And it's very interesting, but he does switch around. And I wouldn't say it's really, really consistent about one chapter here, one chapter there, one chapter here, one chapter there. It's mainly balanced more towards Nye than anybody because he is the protagonist. He's on that really cool cover, which I really, really like this cover. This is actually the second cover for this book, and I think changing the cover is probably one of the best decisions that he made. On another note, he is part of this year's SPFBO or SPFBO. Check that out. Hopefully I'll have a video explaining that coming out soon. But there'll be links if you're wondering what SPFBO is. So I believe it's SPFBO 7. But it is a fantasy competition for self-published fantasy works. About 300 are submitted. And only one comes out alive. Not really. One comes out as the victor. And I'm planning on reading all 10 finalists for this year. Once it gets up to that fact, I'm crossing my fingers that I will already have read at least one of the finalists, aka this book, because I do think this book has a shot at being a finalist. So other things. What other things about this book? I would say this book is heavily Sanderson influenced. It is a dark, definitely leans on the moral gray side of things a lot, doing things for the greater good or what is perceived to be the greater good. That utilitarianism is definitely leaned upon. If you liked Sanderson for the epic scope of his stories, for the magic systems, for the complex characters, yes, but definitely expect a darker tone in this story because you will get it. Our main protagonist, Nye, is not always the most sympathetic. It's not the easiest to be sympathetic with him because of who he is and the decisions that he makes. Magic system, very well defined. And he uses a technique where there are illustrations and explanations. They're extra textual, or I think is the word. I don't think so. But it's not like constantly info dump. He doesn't like that. He doesn't info dump how the magic works. It's gradually explained, and then you can pick up other bits and pieces that aren't necessarily always explained in the text from these little notes that he has at the beginning of chapters, which is really nice, really interesting, and helps a little bit with immersion into the world. Now, his magic system is based on emotions, which is really cool. But it's not your typical wheel of emotions. You don't have this balance thing going on. You don't have typical relations with emotions. He kind of just took it from how he saw it. For instance, like a lot of, Western would classify love as a very good emotion. Love is in this dark kind of magic system. Love is actually given a darker power because of its capacity for manipulation, which I think fits very well. Yeah, and some of the relations between emotions, because in order to activate slight spoilers, in order to activate different emotions in this magic system, or different powers in this magic system, you have to fuel those emotions. And he very clear is like you have to have those emotions. So if you're trying to use anger, you have to be angry in order to use that magic, which is very interesting. And he has a very good consequences. So people that are constantly angry, guess what? They're going to get consumed by their anger and might fall into hatred. People that are constantly channeling calm become apathetic. I think for the most part, he clearly defines his magic system, and it's very well built and interesting. Other influence, I think, the scope of the world that I mentioned earlier. You constantly get the sense that the world is bigger than the story that is being told, which can be hard to do sometimes. I'm sure a lot of you can relate to video games where it feels like the world is very underdeveloped outside of the immediate part that you see when you're playing this RPG. This is not the case in Winds of Strife. You definitely get the sense that there are other forces at work throughout the world that are active and moving, and they play a role to a certain extent in moving some of the plot points forward. But there's something else besides what's right in front of you that's happening. And that, it felt like a Sanderson influence to me because of how he did it. I applaud him for being able to accomplish that, because there are definitely authors that don't, that I've read in the past. I enjoyed the more nuanced characters. I would say that there are some characters that are like you want to root for, but those characters are sadly given less screen time. But you have more time to sit with your less sympathetic characters that are more nuanced, because those less sympathetic characters have their backstories that are presented, and they are well written into their nuance. And you're given the opportunity to sympathize with all these great characters, which is very interesting. I think if you have to have a black and white good guy versus bad guy plot, this may not be the best choice for you. I think that you can puzzle out who's kind of in the right, because it's kind of just, that's how it is. I will say about the nuanced characters, there are characters in this book that could have been in there more, but weren't. Going into this, I'm going to be straight up. What are some of the flaws in this text? And I just made that sound like I'm a scholar doing something. I'm not a scholar. What do I know? I'm sitting in a pile of boxes right now. I think one thing that Uri could work on for the next book, something that I kind of found lacking, was the foreshadowing and suspense. One thing Sanderson does really well is when a twist is revealed, there's foreshadowing. And I think there are several twists where the foreshadowing was pretty light for that twist. And I think there are things that he revealed too early. So the build up to the reveal of these things, or even the reveal itself, would have been more suspenseful if he had done it later in the story and switched some stuff around. I will also say, specifically with our main protagonist, I feel like we didn't have enough time to try to sympathize with him before we got the whole, oh yeah, Nye's a little bit not your goody two-shoes person. We didn't have any time. We didn't have as much time as I think we could have had sympathizing and connecting with him. So yeah, that's kind of my general spoiler thoughts so far. If you thought they were too spoilery with like relation to the magic system or whatever, let me know, because I think that's kind of a balance I'm trying to figure out how to strike with some of these reviews. So I'm going to get in the spoiler section real quick. If you're looking for a link to buy, if you're interested after hearing that, check down below. There's an Amazon link that's not an affiliate link, because I will not accept money from Amazon. Down below, check out that link. Go buy his book. It's a really good book, and I really recommend people try it if they're interested. That being said, I'll go into a quick spoiler part. For those of you that are leaving, see you next time. And for those of you that are staying, let's get into it. So, spoiler thoughts. I think specifically the characters that I wish, going to screen time, I wish had more screen time. Ivy. He purposely built her as a little bit of a Mary Sue. And because he was a Mary Sue, she was a Mary Sue, I think he was hesitant putting it in there, because I can see that. Like, there are definitely some Mary Sues that I really don't like. First one being Race Palpatine, Skywalker, whatever you want to call her. I don't think she was built up well at all. Anyways, this isn't Star Wars. This is Winds of Strife. I think we could have gotten more time with Ivy, and we could have liked her, because I think we really needed a anchor point to a little bit in the series. I feel like it was kind of like you're constantly like reevaluating all these characters, because you hey, nice doing a good thing, but for every person he saves, he's also killing at least 3 or 4 others, which is kind of crazy. So he's killing the people he's trying to protect, which is wild. What that has to do to you? PTSD much? And one of the specific moment that I think really kind of with the suspense and the foreshadowing, there's 2 that I'll talk to. Don't have the book on me, man. I want to remember. So the kings reveal that he didn't kill the witch on the mountain. The witch literally summoned glitter at the end of the book, and I feel like if you had waited till then to be like, oh, by the way, the king actually didn't kill me then, and dropped 1 or 2 hints before, I mean, we're already doubting the king's, he lies a lot because he claimed that he, was it the village of Trent, I believe it was, where Ivy was, being held, but she was the only one that lived. He already claimed responsibility for that. So I think the seeds of doubt in the king were already there, that it would have made a certain amount of sense if he didn't kill the witch either. And it had been revealed after he was dead. The second one is asking for forgiveness. You know what I'm talking about. I don't think that was well foreshadowed at all. I wish it could have been a little bit better. That being said, I really like Glitter and her band of misfits. I think she had some interesting growth in this book. I really like the Sanderson influences. It felt a lot like Promise of Blood to me, to a certain extent. There's the whole, hey, we're going to overthrow the king. Promise of Blood and Mistborn Final Empire. Hey, we're going to overthrow the king, but there's something bigger that's going to come out and bite us once we've overthrown the king. So that was just an interesting thing to see. Definitely really wanted more Ivy, and I hope we see her in next book more. Yeah, so I'm excited to read book 2. I think this was a great debut. Check it out. Talk to me on Discord if you want to hear more thoughts. Thanks, guys. Bye.